Well, I'm LifeBlood. This is George G, and the time is right. Welcome to today's guest, strong and powerful Jack McGuinness. Jack, are you ready to do this?
Ready, ready, ready.
All right, let's go. Jack is the co-founder and partner with Relationship Impact. They are the CEO's resource for unlocking leadership teams' potential. He's the author of Building Great Leadership Teams, and he's a veteran of the United States Army. Jack, thank you for your service. Appreciate you coming on. Tell us a little bit about your personal life, some more about your work, why you
Yeah,
do what you do.
sure. So tell you a little bit about my personal life. Just came off a great holiday season. I have adult kids. They all two working ones, one in college, and they all came home before and a little after Christmas. So we got a lot of good quality time with all three of them, and working together, eating together, going out to dinner, all that kind of stuff, having some fun. So kind of still on a high from all that. So that's a little bit about the personal stuff. What we do is we work with executive teams, like you said, exclusively with young, small to mid-size companies and their executive teams to help them build functioning leadership teams. And that's, there's no perfect team, but sometimes people have a habit of getting in their own way, and when that happens too much, it can bleed into the rest of the organization, and that's when we think we can serve a purpose and help the teams, the individuals, and the teams kind of figure out how to operate more effectively.
I love it. Help people get out of their own way.
Yeah.
Why do we why do we get in our own way, Jack? Is
Yeah,
that
it's a
just a
great
human thing?
question. Yeah. Uh, um, uh, Adults over, I was reading something about this the end of last year. Adults over 35, I think, struggle to evolve and adapt their behaviors more than when you're a little younger. And so we get over time, sometimes get an ingrained view of how we see the world and how we see business or leading or managing, and those views sometimes conflict with our colleagues, and sometimes the environment changes. That one environment we came from was high stress, this one's a little less stress, and we don't adapt our behaviors, and that's what I mean. And that can cause some tension, right? And tension's good for the most part, but sometimes it can unchecked, it can get cause some challenges. So that's kind of what I meant by that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I imagine that is you are going to have work to be done for the foreseeable future. So I was just reading this morning that
Yeah.
that Bob Iger, who's retaken the reins at Disney, is saying everybody's coming back to work for at least 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I have not seen the fallout or what the response is going to be to that. And I guess to some degree that's not necessarily relevant when you're looking at these organizations that are struggling with backlash from
Yeah.
their employees and what they believe to be true. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's when leadership, the CEO, but really the leadership team, and in a big organization like that, there are multiple leadership teams, right? And so it's a lot more complicated than what I do, than what I do. Really, it's mostly working with an executive team and then maybe a leadership team under there. But it does come down to that, right? It comes down to how the leaders behave, what the messages they're sending. Do they buy into the CEO's proclamation, or they pay lip service to it? Have they had the opportunity to push back on the CEO and had some conversations about why we're doing this and what makes sense? And the messages and the tone and the body language and the messages, both verbally, email, all that kind of stuff. They resonate with folks, and people look up and say, those folks on the same page or not. And that helps. It doesn't mean that a bunch of people that don't want to go back 4 days of work are going to all of a sudden be on board, but it does help, right? It helps. And this is not about whether that's a good idea or bad idea. It's just how you message that, and how leadership sticks it, right? It's critical. And there's a lot in what I just said, because it's, the ability for, it's not what I'm not saying like a CEO comes in with a proclamation and everyone just kind of says, okay, we're going to do that in March. It's more about, this is what we want to do. Let's have a productive conversation about it, and bring all sides to the table, and have some disagreements. And, obviously the CEO gets to make the call, but good leaders are able to be open to other perspectives and hear each other out. And that is one of the most critical things we find in the work that we do, is the ability for folks. And it really does come down to whether the CEO or the president or whoever is the formal team leader enables that to happen or not. But when they do, how do you create that what we call productive dialogue, the ability to challenge, debate, disagree, with minimal relational damage, right? And just kind of the ability to move on. That's it's a critical skill for any team.
And the unfortunate reality that as human beings, as we get a little bit older, past 35, we have a tendency to be more rigid in our thinking and behavior, probably everything, just because we've gotten to this place in our life doing what we've probably always done, and it's served us pretty well. But what got us here is not going to get us where we want to go.
Yeah.
So
my favorite executive coaches is Marshall Goldsmith. That book is What Got Us Here Won't Get Us There, or that's not the exact title, but it's an amazing book. It's just about what we're talking about right now.
And so that is, I wrote down wartime versus peacetime, and I apologize because you're a veteran. That's kind of change management, right? We would love to be implementing wonderful stuff when things are going awesome, but more often it's when we are faced with some kind of a decision, that wartime, that we need to be making pivots or whatever. And how do we effectively do that?
Yeah. And so I'm working with a company right now. It's it doesn't matter what it is. The CEO is just a great leader, and I've really learned a lot from them. Been working with them for almost 3 years now, and one of the things he said, that they had a strategy session at the end of last year. They're having a follow-up coming up here, but he started off in saying, we're not great planners here. That's not what our focus on. Our focus is on preparation. And so it's preparing for the crisis. It's not saying we're going to have a crisis, but putting all the things in place that directionally we know what we need to be doing. He's anti-goal, like big picture goal. He's strategic direction kind of stuff. But he is big on preparation for what the environment we're working in is. And just with the pandemic, they did an amazing job. They pivoted so quickly to be able to, they're a big commercial bank in New York, and they were able to pivot so quickly and did all the PPP stuff, which is a nightmare for a commercial bank. And so that concept of preparation, I think, is really, really important. And I'm telling you, if you don't have a leadership team that mostly can be on the same page and put away their personal animosities sometimes, or their view of what we should be doing versus what the team decided to do, then it's really hard. It's like pushing up a rope. Is
it possible to unring a bell when, let's say that CEO makes a decision and comes in like bull in china shop and ruffles feathers and doesn't get they don't have that constructive, productive dialogue that you're talking about. Can you go backwards and sort of unring the bell? How
Yeah,
do you go
that's
forward?
where that's where the self-awareness thing comes in, right? And like so it really it really does come down to though the formal leader and whether they're self-aware enough and not to recognize that they may be getting in the way or have gotten in the way. If the CEO can have some humility and recognize that, that maybe they made a mistake or did something, then you can make some progress. Unfortunately, without that, it's really, really hard. However, when that does happen, it doesn't mean everything's going to be rosy, right? If there is humility in the CEO and they do have the ability to say, hey, I really messed this up, wrong messaging, let's regroup. Now, can the rest of the team regroup, and can they trust that they're able to put their 2 cents on the table without retribution and stuff like that? It takes some repair work. Repairing trust is really hard, right? It's easier to build than it is to fix. And people have their own views on a lot of times when we go into organizations, we dig and then we'll hear stuff like we just don't trust each other. I just don't trust him or her. And what they're really saying is it's not so much about trust. It's that they do stuff differently than I do it, and I really don't appreciate how they do it. And so therefore they're lazy, they're aggressive, they're, whatever. And those assumptions get in the way of us being able to rebuild trust, because trust is really about, character, capability, right? And a lot of times people focus on the capability part of it rather than the character part of it. And the capability part of it is a lot of times where the assumptions come in.
How are you often brought in? Is it CEO realizes I'm just not getting through, or is it maybe a human resources leader?
Yeah. The 80% answer is through conversations with other folks. This is really what we have found in the doing this for 15 years now is an unrecognized need, mostly. Now that being said, we do get called every once in a while. We just wrote this book and that has helped. Not usually through a human resources person. It's mostly through a C-suite executive who's frustrated and says, hey, we have these challenges. But oftentimes, I'd say like the 80% scenario is, I'm having conversations with a CEO or an executive, and I describe what we do and some of the challenges the teams that we worked with face, and they're like, yeah, we got that. And my response to that is always, okay, you got that. So does everyone else. How is it getting in the way, or is it getting in the way? If it's not, if it's annoying, and oftentimes it is just annoying, right? Like people get in, it's just annoying, and but the organization's working well. Their departments are collaborating despite some silly behavior at the executive level, right? And so don't disrupt the apple cart with us, right? But if it is getting in the way, we feel like we have an interesting perspective on how to evolve a leadership team from where it is today to where they want it to be, how they define what great looks like.
So there's always going to be problems when there's human
Yeah.
beings involved. We're
Yeah.
going to have interpersonal conflict. That's a given. Is it actually precluding us and stopping us, keeping us stuck from getting to where we actually want to go? If the answer
Yeah,
is yes, then we engage.
that's right. And I'm authentically. Like sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And every team has dysfunction. It's just a matter of how much you want it to be different, right?
Yeah. And I imagine that engagement can be brief. It could take a really long time, but it's predicated on the CEO's ability to be self-aware enough, to be humble enough to say, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm falling a little bit short in some of these areas, and it is keeping us from getting to where we want to go.
Right. We look very hard for CEOs that say they want us to fix their team, um, because that language is about my team is messed up and those individuals versus I'm contributing to it. And what we always say is every person in that team, if there's dysfunction, has some modicum of responsibility. Some have more than others, but there's everyone has a stake in it for sure. And that, like you said, like we don't do anything for less than 6 months because of the because of the adult behavior change related to it. Because these aren't quick fixes. It's very what we do is developmental, not training focused. It's very hands-on with the individuals and the team. And we work on behalf of the team. We spend a lot of time up front helping the team recognize that we're not just there on behalf of the CEO. And that's not always easy. But it's true. Because if we're just doing what the CEO tells us to do, then we're really not adding any value.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Jack, I need you to come in, fix my team. It's totally
Yeah.
broken. Like, really?
Yeah.
Like that's what it is?
Yeah. Exactly.
How
Exactly.
funny.
And our question is, yeah, well, you're part of the team, right? So what are you doing? What are you doing that's getting in the way? What do you mean? Yeah, but most times people are like, yeah, I probably do this or that. Yeah, and most of the time it's I enable the behavior. Like, for example, we'll have a meeting, we'll have decided on something, and I'll get lobbied. I'll get a call or get someone knocking on my door and say, hey, that decision we just made? I think Bob is way off target on that. I think we should revisit that. And he engages in revisiting it rather than saying, go talk to each other about this and then come back to me I'm happy to revisit if you guys have an effective discussion about it rather than just snipe at each other.
Got it. I love it. Well, Jack, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? How can they engage with Relationship Impact? Where can they get a copy of Building Great Leadership Teams?
Yeah, so Building Great Leadership Teams is on Amazon. That's an easy one. And then my website is or our website is very, very easy. It's relationship-impact.com, and a lot of good resources on there, and links to the book as well. So that encourage folks to take a look there too.
Excellent. Well, if you enjoyed this as much as I did, show Jack your appreciation and share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to relationship-impact.com and check out all the great resources. You can find the book there. You can also find Building Great Leadership Teams on Amazon. And if you are a leader within your organization, the CEO, and things are not going exactly as planned, might be a good opportunity to reach out and engage. Thanks again, Jack.
Thank you.
And until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.